Corruption, it is said, costs the world $2.6 billion a year. That's 17 times what is spent on aid. And the standard reaction to this is, of course, the proclaiming of shrill accusation that corruption costs the world $2.6 billion each year, or 17 times what is spent on aid.
Are you repeating yourself then, Mr. Miller?
I'm doing a thing. I'm making a point via repetition.
Well made.
It's what I was doing there.
Thank you.
But one NGO has taken another approach.
It's called the Accountability Lab. It's based in Washington, D.C., and it runs projects in Liberia, Zimbabwe, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Nepal, which gives citizens the tools to hold their representatives to account. One of their latest projects is called Accountability Idol, and it's a reality show set to hit Nepalese television in the next 6 weeks. Andrew Tuck, our editor, met Accountability Lab's founder at the Atlantic Dialogues Conference in Marrakesh this weekend.
We empower young people around the world to build tools for accountability and anti-corruption to make their societies more fair and more just. I'd been working in international development for about 10 years with the World Bank and other organisations, and realised through that work that accountability is really at the heart of all of the problems that people face in the developing world. And unless we get that relationship between people with power and citizens right, then we're not going to be able to fix all of the other problems that matter, like lack of drinking water, lack of education, that sort of thing. So we set up the lab to help support young people build these creative tools and build the change that they want to see in their societies.
Now, while the word accountable in some instances might seem kind of an aggressive one, you're very keen that it's not a kind of anti-corruption campaign, that this is actually something that everyone can tolerate you being there, even if you are beginning to kind of shake things up a little bit.
It's a lot about helping citizens understand their rights and responsibilities and giving them the information that they need to hold the government accountable. And as you point out, it's not about pointing fingers at corrupt officials, because while they may be doing nefarious things, we find that it's more constructive to talk about accountability and collective solutions to shared problems rather than pointing fingers, which leads to a lot of resistance for change, which can hinder our agenda.
Now, you're doing some work in Liberia. Give us some concrete examples of things that you're doing on the ground there.
We are doing lots of things in Liberia. There's a good group of creative young people there. For example, we've set up the first film school in the country, and in a place where over 50% of the population can't read or write, film is of course a fantastic medium for helping them find their voice and convey their messages. So the film school is helping them make films about issues that they care about in their communities, and then we've been holding film festivals and inviting policymakers and decision makers and donors, and use those films as a advocacy tool for change. We've also been working with a lot of the leading rappers in the country around things like copyright law and getting messages out in a language and in a way that young people understand. We've been working with citizen journalists to put out information to citizens on chalk billboards at key intersections around cities. So it's about engaging people in ways that they understand and giving them the information they need to improve their lives.
And with Ebola, had some of your role and your tasks changed a little bit?
Yes, Ebola is making things very difficult, but we've shifted some of our activities towards the fight. We're not a healthcare organisation, but for example now the film school is making films about what's happening with Ebola, the accountability of funds, why nurses aren't getting the equipment they need and so on. And then we are doing public information campaigns around Ebola, helping to sensitise people to how to stay safe and what they should be doing in these kind of situations.
Now, the idea of transparency, I understand this goes right to the core of everything you do, and people can even look on your website to see how you're spending your money.
Absolutely. We walk the talk, and we're all about accountability and transparency. So we put all of our accounts online in real time, because we don't see why organisations have to report only once a year on how they're spending their money. This is something that's an ongoing issue. So we're completely transparent about our finances. All of our reporting is online. We have quarterly impact calls where anyone around the world can dial in, a bit like a company has a quarterly earnings call, and hear about what we've been doing and how we've been doing it, because we want to be accountable ourselves, and we want to try and set a new example for the way that an organisation can operate in this space.
Now, you're also using the medium of TV. Could you tell us about what you're doing in Nepal?
We have an exciting project in Nepal at the moment called Integrity Idol, which is a national TV show, and any citizen around the country can nominate a civil servant or a bureaucrat who's honest and has integrity. We've been collecting those nominations, and we have a panel that's selecting the top 5, and then we're going to film those 5 doing their job and talking about why it's important to be honest and have integrity. And people will see this on TV. It's going to go out in the evenings, a very busy time when people are watching TV, and they can vote by SMS and Facebook for their Integrity Idol. And the idea is to change the perception of public servants and show that there are good people serving the public good, and that these people should be celebrated rather than vilified. It arose out of a conversation I had with a great young Nepali called Santosh, who runs a youth-focused TV show in Nepal, and we were talking about something along these lines and brainstormed around it. So he's been doing, and his team have been doing all of the technical side of things. We've been helping with the outreach, with building the community, with getting the message out about the way things are happening and the design and the technical side of the project management and so on. So it's been a collective process, and that's the idea. We work with people as partners and help them build the tools that they want to use to make their societies more accountable. We're now expanding to Pakistan, which will be very interesting. Again, a place where there's lots of very young, creative people. The idea is that this is a demand-driven model. It's a big issue around the world. So where we can find youth who have good ideas and who want to set up their own accountability labs, then we'll help them do it to support a global movement of young people who understand integrity, so that 20 or 30 years from now, decisions can be made in more accountable and more responsible ways when these people are the leaders of their countries.
And for you, how do you judge success? At the end of the day, when you look at these projects, what's the outcome that you need to see to think, yes, this is something that went well, this is, perhaps we can take the Idol show to other countries? What would be your way of metering that?
I think we're looking really at 3 different levels: attitudes, behaviours and systems. And we can measure through surveys attitudes and behaviours and the way that people are reacting to what we're doing. And we've seen a lot of engagement around some of our tools. We set up a crowdsourcing tool in Nepal that's crowdsourced information on public services that's been accessed nearly 300,000 times in the last 6 months. So people they want to know information about how to navigate public services, and we can see them engaging around it. But the real impact will come with changing systems, which I think happens over time, and we're collaborating with governments where we can to begin to change policy. And we have a few examples of where that's happening, but I think that's an ongoing process that will take a long time.
And that was Monocle's Andrew Tuck speaking with the Accountability Lab's founder, Blair Glencorse. You're listening to Monocle 24, and coming up in the next half hour on The Daily, we'll be looking at what's making headlines in Asia, and we'll go to New York for an exhibition which I promise you is more fun than it might sound, of 19th century funeral wear.
That sounds like an interesting dressing up box, but first, with the time at 31 minutes past the hour, here's Paul with the latest.